You understand economics? I'm talking big time pre-war global capitalism. You get how that works? Because I don't. Anybody who says they do is full of shit. There are no rules, no scientific absolutes. You win, you lose, it's all just one big crapshoot. The only rule that ever made sense to me I got from a history professor, not an economics professor at Wharton. Fear, he used to say. Fear is the most valuable commodity in the universe. God, that blew me away. Turn on the TV, he'd say. What are you seeing? People selling their products? No! People selling the fear of you having to live without their products. Hey, he was right. Fear of aging, fear of loneliness, fear of poverty, fear of failure. That was my mantra. Fear sells. When I first heard of the outbreaks, back when it was still called African rabies, I saw the opportunity of a lifetime. I'll never forget that first report on the Cape Town outbreaks. Only 10 minutes of actual reporting and a full hour of speculation on what would happen if the virus ever made it to America. God bless the news. I hit speed dial 30 seconds later and met with my nearest and dearest, and I was the only one to come up with a workable pitch. A vaccine. A real vaccine for rabies. Thank God there is no cure for rabies. Because a cure would mean that people would only buy it if they thought that they were infected. But a vaccine, that's a preventative. People would keep taking it as long as they were afraid it was still out there. Well, we have plenty of contacts in the biomed industry, with plenty more up on the Hill and the White House. We could have a working proto in less than a month, and in a couple of days, the proposal could be written up. It was handshakes all around by the 18th hole.
What about the FDA?
Psh, are you serious? The FDA was one of the most mismanaged and underfunded organizations in the whole country. I think they were still high-fiving each other over getting red number 2 out of M&Ms. Plus, this is one of the most business-friendly administrations in the entire history of America. I mean, J.P. Morgan and John D. Rockefeller were getting wood from beyond the grave for this guy in the White House. His staff didn't even read our cost assessment report. I think they were already looking for a magic bullet. They railroaded it through the FDA in 2 months. Remember that the speech the press gave about how it had been tested in Europe and the only thing holding it back was our own bloated bureaucracy? Remember that whole thing about people don't need big government, they need big protection and they need it big time. Jesus Christmas, I think half the country creamed their pants at that. I mean, how high did disapproval ratings go that night? Like 60s, 70%? Like, I don't know, I just know that our IPO went up by 389% in one day. Suck on that, Baidu.com.
And you didn't know if it would work?
Well, we knew it would work for rabies. I mean, that's what they were calling it, just some like weird strain of jungle rabies.
Who said that?
Oh, you know, they. UN or somebody. Well, that's what they called it, African rabies.
Was it ever tested on an actual victim?
Why? I mean, people used to take flu shots all the time, never knowing if it was for the right strain. Like, why is this any different?
But the damage...
Oh, who knew it was going to go that far? Do you realize how many disease scares there used to be that back then? I mean, Jesus, you'd think the Black Death was sweeping across the globe every 3 months or so. Ebola, SARS, avian flu. Do you know how many people made money off those scares? I mean, I made my first million off of useless anti-radiation pills during the dirty bomb scares.
But if someone discovered...
Discovered what? We never lied. They said it was rabies, so we made a vaccine for rabies. We said it had been tested in Europe, and the drugs that it was based on had been tested in Europe. Okay, technically, we never lied. Technically, we never did anything wrong.
But if someone discovered that it wasn't rabies...
Oh, who was going to blow that whistle? The medical profession? We made sure that it was a prescription drug so that doctors stood as much to lose as us. Who else? The FDA who let it pass? The congressman who voted it in? the Surgeon General, the White House. This was a win-win situation. Everyone could be the hero. Everyone made money. I mean, 6 months after Phalanx hit the market, you started seeing these little cheaper knockoff brands. I mean, they were all solid sellers, and you could also see the ancillary stuff like home air purifiers.
But the virus wasn't airborne.
Oh, it didn't matter. It still had the brand name on it. From the makers of, and all it had to say was, may prevent some viral infections. That was it. Now I understand why it used to be illegal to shout fire in a crowded theater. Because people don't go, hey, I don't smell any smoke. Is there actually a fire? No, they go, holy shit, there's a fire, run! I made money on home purifiers, car purifiers. My best seller was this little doodad you wear around your neck when you went on a plane. I don't even know if it filtered ragweed, but it sold. Things got so good. I started setting up these dummy companies, you know, with plans to build manufacturing facilities all over the country. The shares for those dumbos sold almost as much as the real stuff. See, it wasn't the idea of safety anymore. It was the idea of safety. Remember when we first started getting the cases here in the States? The one guy in Florida who said he'd been bitten but survived because he was taking Phalanx. Oh, God bless that dumbass, whoever he was.
But that wasn't because of Phalanx. Your drug didn't protect people at all.
It protected them from their fears. That's all I was selling. Hell, because of Phalanx, the biomed sector started to recover, which in turn jump-started the stock market, which then gave the impression of a recovery, which then restored consumer confidence to stimulate an actual recovery. I mean, Phalanx hands down ended the recession. I ended the recession!
And then, when the outbreaks became more serious and the press finally reported that there was no wonder drug,
precisely. That's the dumbass who should be shot. What's her name? Who broke the story? I mean, look what she did. Pulled the rug right out from underneath us all. I mean, she caused the spiral. She caused the Great Panic.
And you take no personal responsibility?
Oh, for what? Making a little cash? Well, not a little. All I ever did was what any of us are ever supposed to do. I chased my dream, I got my slice. You want to blame someone, blame whoever first called it rabies or whoever knew it wasn't but gave us the green light anyways. You want to blame someone, blame the sheep who forked over their greenbacks without bothering to do even a little responsible research. I never held a gun to their heads. They made the decision by themselves. They're the bad guys, not me. I never directly hurt anybody. And if anybody was too stupid enough to get hurt, well, boo f***ing who? Of course. If there is a hell, I don't want to think about how many of those dumb s***s were down there waiting for me. I just hope they don't want a refund.